Please stand for the pledge of the flag. I'm going to ask our current chairperson, Jane Crawford, to lead us in the pledge of the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing. I'm going to ask Ken Johnson from Rhoda Boys Branch to lead us in our invocation.
Join with me in prayer, please. Our Heavenly Father, we come to you this afternoon in this Thanksgiving season with thankful hearts while addressing a gracious God. Yes. We do not deserve the blessings you so literally bestow upon us, and we are amazed at the grace you shovel our way. Help us not to have petty thoughts about our serious and real challenges. Help us to be aware of where our best remedies have as their source. Give these decision makers a healthy attitude toward their work before them. Give them wisdom that will surprise even themselves. Our children and our citizens need their unselfish and complete understanding of the issues before them. They have the confidence of their constituency. Help them to also deserve the possibility of your accolade even today, a well done, faithful one. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Ken.
Thank you.
Please be seated. For those of you wondering why I'm leading the meeting today, this is once a year that the school board has this reorganizational meeting, and according to Florida statute 1001.371, superintendent actually acts as the chair to begin the meeting until the board can elect a chairperson and vice chairperson. So my duties are as follows. First order of business, according to our agenda today, is to elect a chairperson for the upcoming year. And with that said, this time I'm going to entertain a motion to nominate a person as board chair.
May I ask a question prior to, is there anything in the bylaws that states that you can't keep the one that you have if they're, after a year, it finally looks like she's getting the hang of it, and then all of a sudden you're ousted, and I just for clarification for me, I mean, it looks like she now has a grasp of it. And that's not an undercut, Jane. That's just simply putting it like it is.
I completely understand.
I'll defer to our board attorney.
There's nothing in the bylaws that would forbid a subsequent term.
Okay. All right. With that clarification, then I would like to nominate Jane Crawford.
Okay, we've got a nomination on the floor.
I would entertain a question first before I were to make a motion, but Jane, is this something you would want to do another time, or do you want to pass?
Well, there have been times throughout the year that I would have said no, but I would be honored to do that again.
Well, you need to tell them, because I'm sure not.
Who am I telling?
I'm kidding. I would second Ms. Gilliard's nomination.
Yeah, we got a nomination and a second for Ms. Crawford to be chair. At this time, all who would vote for that motion, that nomination, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Okay. The board chair has been re-elected, and that's Jane Crawford.
Thank you.
And it's my understanding I need to do the vice chair. Is that correct? Yeah, let me do the vice chair. Sorry, premature. At this time, I'm going to ask for any nominations for vice chair from board members.
I'd like to, I was going to nominate Miss Nikki Cummings.
Second.
Okay, got a nomination for Ms. Cummings, vice chair, and a second. All in favor of the motion for Ms. Cummings to be vice chair, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Same sign?
Kathy seconded it.
Yeah, Kathy second. All opposed, same sign?
Aye. No, I meant I was with him.
I think
It was like, he was
I was
bobbing
going to
his
say,
head
you
back
can't
and
vote twice.
Okay, well,
I think it carried unanimously, so congratulations, Ms. Cummings. Ms. Crawford chair, Ms. Cummings vice chair.
if we didn't have Jane as chair again, this would be too organized. It's just perfect the way she has it, you know?
What's that supposed to mean?
I mean, would you hash, dear,
So we hand the gavel back and you're on number 3.
So, number 3 is establish the 2017-2018 meeting dates and times. Do we have a list with us? I know
No,
it
we
was in
got
a-
it.
It's
yeah,
in your-
We had it to preview before, and it's basically,
Hard copy in that folder next.
okay, if anybody needs to see the hard copy, I have it here in this folder.
I
Well-
saw it.
I noticed that there was a time certain on one of the budget hearings at 5:05. So we know that all the others were 3:30, but that one is a
Yes.
date, I think it was
September
September 11th.
Right.
Date certain, whatever else happens, that's
That's it,
happening.
yeah.
And I will point out, there's one meeting in January, one in February, and that's
Yeah.
because of some time conflicts, but,
Absolutely.
right.
And I'd like to ask, I'm kind of loaded. This gives me a year, I guess, that I've been in this seat, and I guess I'm becoming more confident. But anyway, I'd
Kinda-
like to
kinda
ask,
loaded.
can we possibly, even though the dates are set, consider a place? One of the things I did promise during the campaign, during the time that I was campaigning, that we would seek to at least hold one meeting in West Putnam and one meeting in South Putnam. And down the road, I'd like the records to show that we would be at least considering it. And we can
Well,
pick
and
it
along with that,
later.
you know, I brought it up earlier in the year that could we at least have one meeting a month that was later in the afternoon? So, you know, possibly to try to get more people to attend. So as we're thinking along those lines,
Well, I think Kathy said it
both of those.
best the other day when we had the budget hearing, and we adopted our final budget, and there was no one here. I mean, it's,
I know,
I
but,
mean, it makes you,
$86
you could,
million annual budget.
Yeah.
and
it makes you
nobody-
feel, you can take it either way and say, boy, we're doing a good job, because nobody comes to complain, or you could say people are not that involved and don't
Well,
think
until
they
we
could
do
make a
something, I
difference, so,
don't
I have to agree with Sandra, though, that we need to give it a shot
again, yeah, won't hurt.
again, and there's TV cameras on. I don't know if we're able to pan the audience or not, but, I agree. We should hold it in the south and west, and we should hold
I
some
think it's a
evening.
great
I
idea.
agree.
I mean, would we have it at one of the schools?
Oh, I would,
Is that-
I would
have
think
y'all
so.
ever
In the
done that?
past,
At
we,
Melrose Elementary, and I don't know what South Putnam School could accommodate
We used to
us.
go to. the-
Price, when you were superintendent, I
Well, we did,
recall.
we used to go to Price because it was a little more centralized, but that doesn't matter. Melrose is fine, but Miller
Price is more
Intermediate's about the
centralized.
best.
Miller has an auditorium, or
Miller
wherever
has
you
an
choose to have
auditorium,
it.
you
Yes.
know.
But I think that's a great idea, now's the time
Yeah,
to do that.
And we should
Yeah.
make them evening meetings, and then we should make some of these other evening
Yes.
meetings.
Okay.
I think so. Do we want the superintendent to come back to us next meeting with the new,
Okay.
that fits his?
Can you and Sharon look
Sure.
at it, or you and your, people?
Yeah,
Management team.
absolutely.
Management
So,
team, I couldn't think
what
of the
is our
word.
direction? We want one in South Putnam
And
and
one
one in
in-
West Putnam.
yes.
And how many 7 o'clocks here?
Oh,
Do you want those meetings in South and West at a later time?
I think so.
I'd like a later time, if
Like
at
a
all
7
Because
possible.
I
o'clock?
don't have any excuses.
well,
You know,
even
well, we had
seven's,
one out there, but
seven's
now
even
it's-
better than 6:30.
Yeah,
So 7 o'clock?
Yeah,
Make
and, and try to, you think ahead so you don't have to have all your staff, you know.
and you
out.
know, maybe we can get something in the paper before each meeting, where it's going to be and at what time.
The chairmanship's gone to her head, hasn't it?
So did I hear you
I'm
say
getting
you also
familiar with
want
him now.
some meetings here held at a different time later in the
7
evening?
Sure.
also.
And how
7
often
o'clock.
was that?
Once it-
2 more times? In other words, the one in the west at 7, the one in the east at 7, and then 2 here at
That'd
7?
be 4, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Kind of space them out throughout the year?
Yes.
Sounds
No,
good.
Kathy, I think it's a great idea.
Okay.
'Cause some
We just
people
come
don't
up
get
and
off
try
work
to
till 6.
evenly
Yeah.
space them out.
Right, 7, and you can feed the young ones too.
Okay, it's a
You
great
know, if they
idea.
need to bring them, they bring them.
Yeah.
Great,
They may know.
great, so,
And we'll determine the exact location and all that.
And so you'll come back to us with a.
Next board meeting, we'll come back with a new schedule.
Okay, perfect.
Okay?
Okay, appointment of a board member to serve as the board's representative on the small district council.
I'd like to make a nomination to nominate Kathy Jorgensen.
Kathy Jorgensen's already on like 6 committees for FSBA, seriously. It would
Right.
really conflict, I would never be able to make
Nikki,
a
are you
meeting.
doing that now?
thought
Small.
Kathy
Nikki's been doing it.
Yeah, I
No,
did it
Nikki's
one
been the
year and
rep.
then,
Well, I thought you were doing it now, but I can I withdraw my motion and nominate Nicole Cummings. That is your name, isn't it?
do you
Wow,
want,
that-
what- do you
Yeah,
want
it's
to do
fine.
it again?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's no problem.
Second,
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion passes. Okay, appointment of board member to serve as the board's representative on the district insurance committee.
I'm gonna put the brakes on here, folks. We don't have anything in writing about a district insurance committee. The MOU expired a long time ago. There's been no MOU put before this board or approved by this board for years.
I'm just reading what's on here.
So, I know, I understand that, but we have to do something about coming up with a makeup that the board agrees to as well as,
And, you know, and we also
Everybody
wanted,
else.
I don't know if this is the time or not, but we also wanted to, think about putting a retiree on the committee.
Yeah.
And this might be the time to do that as well.
exactly.
Unless there's something we don't know about, or I don't know about.
The union and district management team in bargaining already TA'd the renewal of,
TA'd?
tentatively agreed
Okay.
to the renewal of the insurance committee MOU for this year. And that's all subject to ratification, but that's already been agreed to in bargaining for this year. What I would suggest is at the conclusion of that, then, at the conclusion of this year, then we look at that and, that'll go through ratification here. But it's already been agreed to for this year with the management team. I understand that, but it would not be good faith bargaining for a tentatively agreed document to be, I mean, you're welcome, what I'm saying is that you're welcome to vote no to ratify, but the district management team has tentatively agreed to the language in the insurance committee MOU for this year.
17,
Which says what?
That's correct.
What it always said.
It's the same language as the previous year,
It's
yeah, which
typically-
was ratified by this
Typically,
board.
management that serves in collective bargaining has the green light to go ahead and do these things without consulting the board, because they're doing it before the board, but we will hear it when it comes ultimately, and then if we have some kind of severe problem with it, then we would address it then. But in good faith bargaining, that's how it works.
Now, are you talking about something that's been ratified or good faith bargaining for now? What we're in now?
The document that was tentatively agreed to for 17-18 is the exact same document. There were no changes.
And that's good until the end of the school year?
That's correct. That's
But
for
it
this year.
wasn't put before the board.
Yeah.
That's the one that.
And actually, it didn't really become a controversial issue until after we had already TA'd that particular, so it was one of the first things that was done, because we start with MOUs from the previous year, and, it seemed at the time like a no-brainer. But then as we start going forward with insurance negotiations, retirees begun to show up, and then it became, why aren't retirees on the, and in the original executive session, that wasn't brought up as a desire for the board. Had it been, it would have been in the original TA.
And in the interest of time and having people together, I think we should continue to follow past practice of you guys bargaining for us at the directions we've given you, and I think that's what you're doing. I've never seen us be able to caucus and come and do what you're talking about. It would just be.
Well, and we have,
Bonus inevitably.
since then, decided to start doing executive sessions once a month as well, just to make sure you guys are completely informed. Right.
Now, there has been like an ex officio board member at the meetings, has there not? Non-voting?
No.
So,
At the insurance committee.
Insurance committee.
That's what I'm talking
meeting,
about,
yes,
at the
yes.
insurance committee, not at the
Right.
negotiations, but at the insurance committee. I think
that's what you've been.
Nikki, I think, was just an ex officio member, just as an observer, if
Yes.
you will.
Okay, well,
And I think that's what this is talking about here, as far as that person being just an observer.
That's,
Yeah, it's the same position I've had, which I don't mind doing it again, that's fine.
if we get this, is, I think if we want to reestablish any type of committee on the insurance makeup, that would be maybe done in executive session to take back for the bargaining.
Yep.
So, but as far as this would be,
Yeah, I would recommend that the board go ahead and appoint someone to the committee.
Yeah.
If, when the board receives the full book, after union and management have worked it out, and after we've gone through additional executive sessions, that we can communicate to the management, or you can communicate to the management team, what you'd like to see. And if that committee structure or membership changes, we can always readdress an appointment at that point in time. But for right now, I would recommend that we continue operating as it has been to this date.
I nominate
Well, Madam
Nikki.
Chair, as Ms. Gilliard stated, there is very good to experience, and Nikki really knows insurance from having served on the committee for so long, up, down, and sideways. So I'd like to nominate her to represent us on the insurance committee.
Second.
And Nikki, it's okay to be
She
on
said
two
yes.
committees? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Okay, appointment of a board member to serve as the board's representative on the expulsion committee.
I know Kathy has done a great job. Is that something?
Are you,
I'm fine with it.
I make a, I
because she
make,
does a wonderful
yeah,
job.
definitely. I make a motion to nominate Kathy.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is passed. Okay, appointment of a board member to serve as the board's representative on the calendar committee. Can I make a motion?
No, but I'd like to nominate Sandy Smith, Sandy Gilliard Smith. That's, ooh, that's
Way
a long
back.
time ago.
Different Sandy.
Second.
Sandy, would you consider?
I'll consider,
Well,
I'll go and learn.
Okay,
Yes.
good. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Sandy Gilliard is the board member that will serve on the calendar committee.
And I will be getting notices as to when they will meet.
Who heads that up? Mark? Sandy will get notices when the calendar committee is going to meet?
I think Debbie has been our person, right?
Okay, I didn't know if
Okay.
Tanya took
All
that
right,
over.
I'll give them a cell.
No.
A text works better for me.
We'll make sure.
That's one I don't want to be.
Okay, I'll give them my number.
Madam Chair,
Text.
point of order, we usually appoint someone to represent us on the Value Adjustment Board,
It's time for that.
as well as a business person from the community. And Mr. Judd Newfeld has done it for years, and coincidentally, we met yesterday, and he said it's an honor, and he'd be honored to do it again. So we can appoint Judd Newfeld as the board representative.
Yeah, if I can speak to that just for a moment.
Sure.
In the current policy, the board is to appoint someone to the Value Adjustment Board and the citizen representative at the organization meeting. But the statute does not require that. And as of last April, we appointed someone to the Value Adjustment Board and the citizen representative, Judd Newfeld. And that would not be up for renewal until this upcoming April.
Oh, good, so we
But
can keep it.
in Sharon and I have met, we both agree that it's best for us to amend that policy so that it is in conformity with the practice and the natural fall of the calendar. It's not going to conflict with statute, but for purposes of complying with the policy as it exists today, I think it is beneficial for the board to go ahead and vote on that, to have something on record for those two positions. And then when it comes forward next in April
So in April,
2018,
yeah, okay.
then everything will be settled. The policy will reflect what the calendar states.
Okay, so it stands that Kathy will be continue to be our representative from the board, and Judd Newfeld will be the,
Until April.
Until April, and then we'll,
do it again, that's
okay.
fine.
Well, would somebody make a motion to agree to that in second?
I make a motion that we continue to utilize Ms. Jorgensen's abilities on the Value Adjustment Board, along with Judd Newfield as our citizen representative till April, and we'll look at it again.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Mr. Buckles' motion has passed. Okay, thank you, Kathy. I heard you do good things on that board.
Oh, thanks, I don't know about that.
Well, I did hear that, actually. Okay, we'll start with our presentations now, and Bill Black and friend are here to represent the Knights of Columbus and their essay contest winners. They'll make some awards.
First, I'd like to thank Mr. Cernsey and his staff for getting the info out on the essay contest to the students, and also want to thank the board for letting us make the presentation here, because it is a real nice venue to do that, and we certainly appreciate it very much, and want to thank you a lot. One of the focuses of the Knights of the Columbus is patriotism, and we usually choose a topic for our essay contest to revolve around being patriotic or somewhere that fashion. And this year's was, what does being patriotic mean in America? And we had approximately 70 entries that came in this year, and which is really, really good. And that means a lot of the info went out to the kids, and a lot of the kids wanted to participate. And it was kind of amazing when you would read these essays. There were several themes that came out, no matter, they weren't all presented exactly the same, but there were several points of interest that showed up. One was love your country, honor your flag, honor veterans, and be nice to other individuals. It was said in some way, shape, fashion. Almost everyone said those things, and it was real difficult to pick the winners, but we had a panel of knights who read them and scored them, and then rescored them, and went back, and if Sandra read them and then she said this, then somebody else would read them to see, and so it takes a little time for us to do that. And as I said, I want to thank you, and right now I want to bring up the winners, and I will call each one individually, and Mr. Parks Corley will hand out the check which they received for $100 and a certificate for them. And our first winner is our elementary winner, Madison Montgomery.
Hey.
And Madison is from James A. Long Elementary. And our middle school winner is Haley Simpkins, who is from C.H. Price. And our high school winner is Alejo Cruz from Crescent City High School.
Alicia, could we get a picture of all three together?
If y'all come back up, we'll get a picture of y'all.
Mr. Black, if you would like to stand in.
Get on one side.
I might be, I don't know. Used to get sued every week.
Thank you.
And once again, thank you, board.
Thank you, Bill. Appreciate you.
Thank you for all you've done for kids over the years, Bill. Thank you for all, I know you wanted me to say it again louder and clearer, but thank you for all you've done for kids in Putnam County all these years.
Absolutely.
I was only as good as the people who were working.
Well, for those of you that don't know Mr. Black, he's a longtime educator here in Putnam County and has touched many lives, so he continues to do so during retirement. Thank you, Bill.
Thank you.
Am I up, Madam Chairman?
Yeah.
Chairperson?
Oh, yeah, yes. We were talking about FSBA. Mr. Cernsey is going to give us a State of the District presentation now.
Thank you, and I'm going to ask some staff who I've talked to already to come up and just stand behind me for the purpose of, as we go through this PowerPoint in a very brief manner. I want to give the board an opportunity to ask questions, and I have our staff here to answer questions specific to some of the things in the PowerPoint. So thank you guys for coming. And again, they're just here to answer your questions if necessary, but again, we're going to go rather briefly. And the point of this presentation is we want to take time out and look at the past year. I started last year this time, and many of the people that you see up here now are in new positions or in positions where they were last year, but we are all part of a team now and have a lot of things that we want to share with you, and very proud of that. And just to show you that we are heading in a positive direction, and we have some sites ahead that we're going to continue working for. But if you would, you should have a copy in front of you, and for the audience we have on the screen, we'll be following a PowerPoint. And thanks to Felicia Cahan for spending so much time putting this together. She did an excellent job. Once again, if you look at the strategic plan on the next slide, this is the plan that our board put together some time ago. And everything we talk about today is going to be addressing your strategic plan, specifically maximizing the learning of all students. And you see the 4 different goals that are addressed to improving student growth. And each of these will touch that. Next page, we talk about accomplishments for the past year. And specifically, one that touches all of our departments is that of communication. And if you look in the notes are not on there, but you have the notes in written form, and we will be providing this on our website, Facebook page, if you'd like to get a copy of that. But there's some things that we've strived to do over the past year in improving communication. Districts and schools, we've done some publications as far as around the district. We like to share what's going on in all of our schools. We've done a Putnam Pulse, where I personally send out messages that relate to important things going on in our district. We are currently doing our Thankful Days. Our district staff is going out to each school and actually serving ice cream floats, just to show our appreciation. Again, trying to reach out to each of our schools. We did it today in the district office upstairs. So we are almost finished with that tour, so if you get a chance, come out and eat some ice cream with us. We're trying to connect with our district and community. Part of our structure is we created area directors in the south, in the west, and the central who are responsible for certain schools, and they visit those schools on a regular basis to support them, to help monitor their progress, and that's been very successful. We met with a lot of community-based leaders, just trying to spread the word on what we're trying to do as a district within our community. And I'm especially proud of our Superintendent's Advisory Council that meets in all 3 areas of the county, and those committee members are made up of people in the business community and just people that are known within their community who come and give us feedback, give us input on what we can do as far as doing a better job. And that has been extremely successful. Good communication tool. Our district and business partners, again, our advisory council has been very important, and we also have connected with our Chamber of Commerce and Putnam Ford, which is another group here in town that is striving to improve the economy and the educational outcomes of Putnam County. Our district and school board, we've done a lot of things trying to connect with you as far as we're attending next week, the combined FSBA FAS conference down in Tampa, and we've had the master board training. So there's been a number of steps where I have been trying to improve communication with you and you with me as well. So that's a continual process to improve communication. Next slide. What we've done is organize this according to our 3 areas, our 3 assistant superintendents. We have finance under Ms. Odom, curriculum and instruction with Laura France, who could not be here today, but we do have several of her directors here to answer questions, and our support services headed up by Mr. Bowling. So as we go through this, let's look first at finance. And you see on this slide, these are some just general things, general accomplishments that Rhonda wanted to highlight. And in your notes, there are a number of specific highlights. If you have some questions, Rhonda's here to answer those questions. But on the slide, if you can't see that in the audience, we have revamped our investment plan, where she saved annual investment advisor fees and increased interest yield. Next thing is implemented district-wide direct deposit, and she's cut expenses as far as related to to check, stock, ink, and reissue costs. And I believe now we are paying all of our employees electronically now. We're not using paper checks anymore. So that's a cost savings to our district. Class Wallet is the way we cut expenses by implementing a program through Class Wallet for teacher lead funds. And finally, our food service has been recognized by the District School Superintendents Association for outstanding service. Now, if you go to the next slide, this is one that we feel the most proud of, and you have been a part of, and that is improving our fund balance. And the slide, or the graph, tells it all. If you look at the years, dating back all the way to 07, 08, during the economic decline, you recall our district received money from the federal government to help, kind of prop us up for a while, because that was a severe economic time. But since that time, our fund balance has been continuing to decline over the years. And this graph actually shows 2010, 11. It hasn't been until this past year that we've started to trend upward. And it has not been easy, and each of you know what I'm talking about. We've had to eliminate a number of positions. We've had to reallocate positions to schools. We've not rehired or not filled positions. All that with the idea of trying to increase our fund balance. So we are very proud of that. Our economic health of this district has improved drastically over the past year as we go into this legislative session, which tends, by all accounts, is going to be a very testy one as far as funding. So we need to be prepared, and I feel very confident that we will be prepared. Just to put a dollar figure on what we have cut to improve our fund balance, over $2 million in general fund money has been saved over the past year. So congratulations to you for supporting us on that. Any questions for Rhonda at all on anything on that slide?
Keep up the good work.
Yeah.
Has the direct deposit for everybody eliminated the need for paper stubs, or do we still have to give paper stubs?
We're doing the paper stubs electronically. It's been a little bit of a slow get to that, but we're doing that also.
Great, thank you.
And I know for those employees that do not have a checking account, we're using the cards. Rapid pay card. So, okay, if you go to the next slide, curriculum and instruction, and we have a number of directors here to represent Ms. France. So let's look at the blue side first. District improvement initiatives, our graduation initiative, which we'll talk more about in just a minute. Our strategic plan, which, as a matter of fact, if you go to our website, we just posted our targets on our website today, and shows you what our district is actually, our specific targets for this year over the next 5 years on what we're going to do as far as improving achievement, improving discipline, attendance. All those things are very specific in our strategic plan. Our data chats, we've met with principals for our first quarter data chats, and they have come to us with specific targets in mind that we're going to hold them accountable to, and they're going to come back in January and show us what kind of progress they're making towards those targets. That's how we're going to improve this district, is each school achieving those short-term goals in each of those tested areas. So that's a very positive plan. Our area directors are monitoring that very closely. Our countywide acceleration. This is the first year that we created the collegiate high schools at Interlochen and Palatka High Schools. We've expanded Cambridge from QI Roberts. For the first time, Crescent City now has Cambridge at Miller Middle and Crescent City High School. So those kids will not have to ride the bus 40 miles one way to go to Cambridge.
I'm sorry. I've actually just talked to a parent, so they're all Can you explain that?
Yeah,
'Cause
the
I was
ones who,
confused.
the ones who started going to QI are continuing. So we started Cambridge with the ninth grade. They're
Okay,
on
'cause
site.
this is a ninth grader, and he said he had the choice, and he could either stay at Crescent City or go to QI, so he chose to go to QI, so that's a choice.
Yeah, if they had a sibling already going.
Okay, because I was like, oh, well, so basically, in reality, they have a choice, but we're trying to move ninth to go to Crescent City,
Right.
and then 10th through 12th.
10 through 12, grandfather them in because they're already attending QI.
Gotcha, okay.
Right. And we started that also at Miller to feed that program.
Okay.
And the idea is we'll do, as we did with QIs, build a year at a time in Crescent City High School.
So next year it would be 9th and 10th grade and
So
so
you
on.
think the choice will quit happening when the 10th, 11th, and 12th would graduate from QI, so there would be no siblings left? Is that kind of what you're thinking?
All of the parents understand that bus transportation was guaranteed for students that were already at QI for certain grade levels.
Right.
But the idea would be that they would transition to Crescent City High School.
Okay, so like next year, or, I mean, just because this person asked me specifically, you gave them a choice in ninth grade, they chose to go to QI, but you're gonna say next year in 10th grade, they're not gonna be allowed to go to
Can
QI?
you email me that specific student? I
Yeah,
can get you
but
their
I would like to
specific
know if
information.
we need to make the policy, or you guys are making the policy, or what, how it's all gonna, because I don't like wishy-washing this. I'd rather across the board say, okay, so in 2018, we're gonna quit busing people from South Putnam, or are we gonna do it on a need basis?
So the idea is that students that are at QI that live in the Crescent City area, those students would be still there for the next 3 years.
Okay.
Because a bus would be physically going from Crescent City to QI.
Right.
Because students were already there who don't have the same programmatic opportunity in Crescent City. But once the programmatic opportunity is available for students in Crescent City, we're gonna stop the bus coming from Crescent City to QI to save that cost.
Okay.
The ones that started will graduate from.
First year only freshman activities are available in Crescent City, so the other 3 levels have to continue.
No, but right now, a ninth grader started at QI. She rides the bus from Crescent City because she was given the choice. So then I just wondered when that choice is, because to me that's confusion on if we stop, because we're going to stop the bus when the 10th graders graduate, I guess, would be the.
Yeah, the ultimate goal is to stop the bus, but I see the voluntary part, as long as the bus is running, if they wanted to voluntarily
Right.
ride, but I think the most part, they want to stay home, stay in their home school.
But the voluntary, so let's say, just for instance, 10th grade, we're gonna run it again for 10th, so we're gonna run it for 11th grade and 12th grade, so that's 2 more years on top of this. So then the ninth grader that started and had the choice this year and is at QI, they're gonna be there till 11th grade and then told, sorry, we don't have a bus.
They're all aware of that. Every child I
Okay.
know of is aware of that scenario.
Okay,
Yes, ma'am.
that's just where I wanted clarification.
That's why it's voluntary.
Yeah, I gotcha, okay.
Okay, thanks for asking. Continue on, first graduating class with international diplomas happened at QI Roberts this past year. We increased acceleration offerings at all secondary schools. Started more acceleration classes than we've had in the past. College and career readiness, and we're very proud of this. We've increased career and technical offerings. We've increased the number of AVID schools. Actually, we have one school, Mosley, which is an entire AVID school. And we have middle schools and high schools that have AVID classes within them. And we've increased STEM initiatives throughout our district as well. And you see there's a number of initiatives in your notes that we're working on. But we are very proud again of our advanced manufacturing class that we've talked about a lot, which has started in all 3 high schools in its first year. And we've been able to fund that with the assistance of Georgia Pacific. And next year, we are looking to continue that and expanding that as well. And again, we have actually requested a legislative appropriation with matching funds to help expand that so that we can have material and space to better meet the needs of our students in the advanced manufacturing program. Do you have any questions at all of our staff, especially from about CTE or our acceleration classes.
No, I just would like to commend everyone on all the hard work y'all have done to advance us in these areas.
Well, that's where we're going to really move our district, you know, trying to match our kids up with some opportunities for employment later on. And if we don't meet the needs of our local community, we're missing the boat. Not all kids are going to college, but we definitely need to be in tune with what's our business community need, and are we training our kids to meet those needs.
Would this be the appropriate time to ask about, I know, is this the same APAGA study,
There is an APAGA study that has taken place through our legislature, which is talking about post-secondary
Right.
offerings,
Yeah.
and that has not,
we haven't heard anything back
have not heard back yet, no.
or our relationship with,
Right,
St.
that is
John,
still,
okay.
that's still in, being reviewed by the legislature.
Okay.
As soon as we hear something, we'll definitely, report that.
What he just spoke to you about has to do with the legislative appropriation that we as a district will be seeking this upcoming session, and Rick's working on that very, very steadily, so I think we're looking good.
And not only with our legislature, we are also seeking financial assistance from our federal government. And we have written a proposal that our instructional staff put together, where we are seeking money for possible career academies down the road. And those are extremely expensive. The startup costs are, you know, it costs a lot of money to get these things going, to buy materials, to fund teachers. You know, thanks to you guys, you actually funded teachers to start up the advanced manufacturing program last year. But to start different programs, it's going to be very costly.
so would these be on the line, same as like the flagship schools that we've talked about in Flagler County and?
Yeah, but these would be specific to
Our
certain,
needs,
to our
yeah.
high schools.
Yeah.
And it'd be an organized program as kids
That's all.
move through the high schools. Yeah, but again, those things are
Those
not
for
cheap.
years.
But that would be a great thing to happen in Putnam County if we can make that happen.
Oh, absolutely.
If you go to the next slide, the thing our instructional team wanted to point out, and in your notes, the amount of money that our staff is able to bring into the district is unbelievable through grants and entitlements. We have competitive grants like the SIG 3, SIG 4 grants, the JFG, which you saw the presentation last week with Ms. Hopkins of the last board meeting.
Yeah.
That was funded by a grant,
Okay.
JFG grant, 21st Century grant. There's a number of competitive grants that we've been able to get this year, and there's entitlement grants that we received from the federal government. But I do want to point out the total amount of money that is brought into this district is over $15 million through a combination of all these grants, which helps meet our instructional needs. So kudos to all the people who spend time writing those grants, because if we just depended on what the state of Florida sends us, it would be very tough. But we have people that go after them. And writing grants is not an easy thing. You can write them, but getting them funded is a different thing. Any questions of our instructional staff before we move on?
Under the entitlement, is this the first year we got UNICEF? Under the,
Yeah, so,
because that's the,
UNICEF, we used to get a portion of Title I School Improvement Grant, and that was with the Schools of Hope legislation under Senate Bill 7069. That was that money was converted into UNICEF.
okay.
But it became more of a dedicated pot of money to be used for certain situations depending upon school grade
Gotcha.
and classification of the school.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you. We go to the next part on support services, and this is the area that's headed up by Mr. Bowling, and he's here to answer any questions. And it's like Mr. Bowling says, when you know you're doing a good job, when you don't hear when you don't know what's going on, because it's such a smooth operation, you know, it's when you hear complaints that the bus is not running right or the computers break or whatever, that's when you start hearing about our support services. But when you don't hear about them, that usually is a good thing. But let me just highlight some of the things listed. Transportation, hiring bus drivers has been an extreme challenge for us. And our transportation department, along with Mr. Bowling, have been very creative in hiring drivers. We've actually gone out there use some tactics to try to entice people to apply for drivers and help pay for some of the costs of background checks and driving tests and all that. And they've been successful in doing so. But we have enough buses. We just need drivers. They've improved our routes. We've had some bumps in the road, so to speak, in having our routes in some places in South Putnam. We've had to run double routes. But he, and along with Sharon Spell, have done a good job in trying to reduce that. Our IT program has done an exceptional job with School Messenger, Canvas, Florida Code. A lot of the improvements they've made are benefiting our schools. Efficiency, upgrading our facilities with new energy efficient equipment. And we've talked about the audit by Florida Power and Light. They've gone through and have done a complete audit of our district, and we will be holding a workshop about that in December to tell you more about the audit and what our next steps are. But our goal is to try to reduce energy costs and upgrade our equipment so that when something does fail, you know, we're in a position we can replace that at a efficient cost. Our maintenance improvement, just some examples. If you go to Palatka High School, you look along the fascia, the brown fascia, that's been replaced. That's long in coming. Crescent City High has had a problem with drainage. If you go out there, the ground is, you know, every time it rains, a lot of that's washed away, but we've made some big improvements there. And of course, the support during Hurricane Irma is unbelievable. And we actually highlighted one of our employees during that time, but we have so many people in our maintenance department that have stepped up and really kept our schools safe and also have contributed to our community. So if you would take a minute and just scan through there, through all those notes, see if you have a question about anything. I'm very proud of what our IT department is doing as far as spreading the word through our Facebook, Twitter, and our website. Our big thing is we're trying to improve communication, and the number of people we reach out and touch every day with what we're doing is very important. There's also a reorganization of our human resources department. Ms. Whitehurst is here. She's made a lot of changes, I think, especially reaching out and trying to improve our hiring and retention practices, which we'll talk about in just a minute with our next steps. So if you have any questions at all about
What
support,
fresh
let us know.
service?
Say again?
Fresh service?
Fresh Service is a new ticketing system. We used to use Help Desk, but it's just a new way to for teachers or just personnel to submit work orders.
Oh, okay.
And not only that, it also allows for feedback, so they can tell us exactly what they thought of the customer service piece. And beyond that, they're tracking the response time. They try and triage things by what level of or repair that it'll take. So if it's a thing that they can do in 3 hours or 3 days or 3 weeks, they just put it in the correct category, and then they work to improve that turnaround time.
Okay.
And Fresh Desk helps them monitor that.
Thank you, Thomas. You know, as a former principal, the biggest challenge has been when your IT or your internet goes down or your Wi-Fi goes down, you want service right away. You don't want to wait several days because instruction depends on it. So Mr. Bowen has been very sensitive to making sure when there's a work order coming through that it's addressed in a timely manner. If you turn the page, again, remind you about our mission statement for the district. We will inspire every student to think, to learn, to achieve, to care, and to become a successful and responsible citizen. So with that said, let's look at what our next steps are, our vision for the future. And again, I've been telling you this over the past year. Our number one vision for this district is to move from the lower 10% in the state as far as districts go to the upper 1/2. And that's not going to happen overnight. But that is our ultimate goal. As a matter of fact, our targets, our strategic plan targets that we've created over the next 5 years are actually designed to meet that goal. So, but we're not going to do it just hoping and wishing. We have a very organized plan to do that. But again, let's look at our 3 areas: finance, curriculum instruction, and support. And let's just summarize some of the next steps that we have. As far as finance goes, we're continuing to increase our unrestricted fund balance. The more we can put back and save for the rainy day, and when things happen, the better off we're going to be. We're going to increase our breakfast participation with breakfast in the classroom programs, and that's been we have a number of schools who are serving breakfast in the classroom, and that's been a benefit. Kids, it's hard to learn when kids are hungry, and we ensure that they are fed each morning. And we also want to implement our wellness plan as part of we talked about that with our insurance. Again, we're trying to have healthier employees, educate them on the benefits of being healthy. Curriculum instruction, we have our graduation initiative, which we'll show you a slide in just a second. And we've done very well with that, and we are looking in the mid to late next month in December at our next graduation rate from the state. So we'll update you on that. Our strategic plan targets, which I mentioned to you just a minute ago, are available on our website. And again, we'll continue applying for competitive grants. One grant that we talked about is that TOPS 3 grant for our schools and turnaround status, which can pay us up to $2,000 per FTE if awarded. So again, we are eligible for that grant, and we'll keep you posted. They've already awarded some schools, 11 schools out of the state of Florida have been awarded that, and there are 14 schools remaining to receive funding from the Department of Education, and we hope to receive some of that money. Finally, our biggest thing is in curriculum instruction, we're working very hard to reduce the number of low-performing schools, and we're partnering with some other outside agencies to give us assistance in doing that. We talked about that with Mosley Elementary. You know, for example, we're partnering with Learning Sciences International and are working very diligently trying to bring that school grade up. As far as support goes, increase efficiency in departments to better serve our students and employees. And again, it's the things you never hear about, but it's behind the scenes stuff. We've got to put teachers in the classroom. We've got to get kids to school and back home again. We've got to feed them. And all that's going to go on, and the better we can do that, the better our schools will be. Next page on partnerships. We have an intentionality on trying to reach out and to other people within our community, specifically our local college, our local community groups, and our businesses. And by doing so, for example, partnering with the Collegiate High School with St. Johns River State, also with our welding program, we're reaching out and have partnered with FCTC in the past. Our advanced manufacturing program, we're working with Georgia Pacific and Seminole. And most recently, our STEM 2 Hub program, which Dr. Coleman can tell us more about, is an exciting program that's really going to look at some occupations for the future. And you see some of those. The Web Crew, Bicycle Club, where kids are actually building their own bicycles, and our coding training at the elementary level. But again, we can't do that in isolation. We're going to have to reach out and work with people in our community. Go to the next slide. Our graduation rate is one thing that our business community is looking to our district. If we're going to bring in outside business, if we're going to increase employment, we must bring up our graduation rate. And if you look, starting in 2015, we were at 55%, and we've gone from 55 to 64% in 1 year. That was a huge jump. And you see our goal is to move up 4 percentage points per year. So we've got a good start. We are actually anticipating that we're going to exceed that goal this year. I don't want to say that yet, but we're very optimistic that we're going to exceed our 4 percentage point goal for this coming up year. But as you know, we've hired graduation coaches. We have a very explicit plan over the next 5 years. We have early warning signs and so on that we're following to make sure that we are on course to improve our graduation rate. Next page. Attendance is another area. If we're going to improve achievement, kids have to be in school. and we're addressing that more on a tier 1 level right now. All of our schools have things in place to encourage kids to come to school, to reward them for coming to school, and make sure we make parents aware of how important it is for kids to be in school. Our ultimate goal is 90% of our students attending school 90% of the time by 2021. I want to point out, at the end of 2016-17, our district has 70% of our students attending school at least 90% of the time. At the end of this past quarter, in October, we had 78% of students attending school 90% of the time. 8% jump. So we are moving in the right direction. And kudos to our team for all the things they're doing. When you go out to the schools, ask the principals, what are you doing to improve attendance? And they have a lot of very visual things as you pull up into the school, just to remind parents and kids, attendance is important. We even have some principals that are going, when parents are late getting their kids to school, they go to their car and ask them, how can we help you? What are some things, not to challenge them or confront them, how can we help you help get your child to school on time? So we have a lot of emphasis on that. Next page on maintenance. Again, we want to make sure all of our schools look good, because when you're in a school that looks good, you're going to perform well. So Mr. Bowen has made it his personal drive to inspect all of our school grounds to make sure we're doing everything we can for the outside grounds, the outside appearance, to make sure kids are in schools that look good. Next page, another big push of ours, and Ms. Winehurst is here, she can address questions. We have a teacher shortage, and we have to do a lot of things to attract teachers to come here and stay here. And we have a lot of things, in, as you see listed, intentional things to attract teachers, and we will also want to grow our own teachers. But Ms. Winehurst, do you have anything you want to add to that? Or if you have any questions about what we're doing to attract quality teachers?
Doing a good job.
We still have positions now that have not been filled. So that's pretty disheartening, but we're not giving up. We're still going out there and trying to attract the best people.
What areas are we,
It's not just a district issue, so that's a little bit of a relief in some sense, but it's very sad that it's a nationwide issue. When every conference that I've been to, any kind of meeting that I've been to, the universities are reporting that the students who are entering into the College of Education is decreasing every year. So one of the things that that I have a goal of is we have to start showing all the positives that are happening in our school system, and the power of what we do. And so, you know, there's a lot of research out there that says, like, for every negative thing that is said, you need anywhere from 7 to 10 positives to overcome that negative. So that's one of the things that we're really going to start working on, is pushing positive promotion of everything that is happening in our schools and in our classrooms, and show that teaching is not a bad thing to do. It is, in my opinion, the most important thing that anyone can do. I mean, we have the future that we are truly impacting. So that's, but it's very disheartening to know that a teacher shortage is nationwide, and so it's not necessarily just, it's not about Putnam County. It's about education, unfortunately.
and I think one of the most important things that we can do for a new teacher is to support them all year long.
Yes.
And one of the biggest things I hear, not just with new teachers, but with all teachers, is discipline. And we've got to support them, and especially with the new teachers. And we get a lot of new teachers that didn't specifically come through a Department of Education at a college. They, you know, gone and taken the, they don't have that classroom management training to help them support their discipline in the classroom. And our principals have got to stand by them and support them with that.
Well, just to let you know, next Thursday we're doing our fall
beginning teacher support session. And the whole focus is really about engagement strategies and procedures and management type techniques for both secondary and elementary of our teachers that have less than 1 year experience.
That's wonderful.
And I was just gonna say that, you know, there's a possibility when we start looking at recruitment that we not overlook, you know, Bethune-Cookman and try and bring in some minority educators
ma'am.
as well.
Yes, ma'am. And the great thing about,
I would be willing to, even though I'm a rattler.
right.
I
We can
mean,
go to
I'm a rattler, I
Tallahassee.
graduated from A&M, but I'm just saying, it's right here in our back door.
Right.
And
It's,
Okay, I'm just
there's,
oh no, I'm a rattler.
the spring, there will be a lot more recruitment opportunities happening in the spring, because when you have the fall career fairs at universities, there are a few that graduate in December, and we do have one that we're going to next Friday at UCF. But if you look at like statistics, it's not, you don't get a return on investment on putting a lot of it into the fall career fairs. So it's really like if you're in the middle of the year, it's really hard to attract at that time, but in the spring, you have to prepare for the following fall. So we'll be doing a lot of that in the
Well,
spring.
and another thing we're fighting against, and this goes along with what Rick said earlier, you know, businesses and, building developments don't wanna come to Putnam County because of the school system. It's a vicious cycle. You know, how do we draw new people here and ask them to live in Putnam County?
This plan.
I
Yeah,
know, but that's what I'm
I'm
saying. It's
agreeing.
just kinda all part of a circle that, you know, we're fighting at every level.
Well, we need to have, and we're working on an organized effort to use our media to really paint a positive picture of Putnam County. Because, you know, we've gotten a bad rap in the past, but we're going to change that. And another,
Go to our hashtags.
right.
Hashtag I love my job, hashtag impacting the future, hashtag proud to be PCSD.
Absolutely.
You know, another thing too, if you're a teacher and you have a spouse, a lot of times they need a job. Or especially a young teacher, they might have to get assistance in putting down a deposit for a rental or whatever. There's a lot of things that we have to look at, that some barriers to teachers moving here. So,
Finding places for them to
right,
live.
finding quality housing is very important. So, anyway, that's where we're heading. If you look at the last slide, I borrowed a quote from Ronald Reagan that kind of sums up what we're doing here. And again, this is not an overnight thing. This is something we're doing over a number of years, but each generation goes further than the generation preceding it because it stands on the shoulders of that generation. You'll have opportunities beyond anything we've ever known. So keep in mind, you know, we're trying to put our young people on our shoulders right now and give them some opportunities that they otherwise did not have. For the first time, they're going to have some career and technical opportunities. They're going to have some acceleration opportunities. They're going to have some things they never had before, thanks to you guys. So we need to continue to give our kids opportunities, and they will be successful. And we'll continue to update you throughout the year.
Well, and I think partnering with the St. John's River State College with Boys Can too and Girls Can is, you know, a wonderful opportunity for us to get those kids there so they can see what's out there for them.
They need to dream. They need to see what's possible. And those two events out there were wonderful. So great opportunities. So thank you all for your attention, and we just want to go through this. And this time next year, we'll update you on how we've done. And I want to personally thank our staff for all the hard work they've done and their willingness to come up here. Thank you. Thank y'all.
Okay. Where are we? Public comment. I did not receive any public comment cards, so we're going to move on. It's now time for the consent agenda. Ms. Jorgensen, do you have anything you'd like to pull?
H3, please.
H3. Ms. Cummings?
That's the same one I had.
Okay. Mr. Buckles?
I'm fine.
Ms. Gilliard?
Have H3 highlighted. And,
I already got that squared away. I called Laura.
here it is. And this one I can clear up with Mrs. Piazza regarding the testing of the students and her request for for graduation date being May 18th, and then testing June 6th, just making sure that those students come back, so I can speak with her
Yeah.
regarding that.
Yeah, they did that last year too, I think. They got
And
it
then
worked
I want to not pull this one, H2, but just certainly to congratulate Dr. Coleman.
Coleman, yeah,
Yes,
that's an awesome
I
opportunity.
just thought that was awesome, being nominated to serve.
Yeah.
But certainly H3, kind of we've talked about it before. I think Laura did a thorough job of explaining it to us, but I was looking at the percentages, so we'll talk about it.
Okay, somebody make a motion?
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the consent agenda with the exception of H3.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
What is it,
who-
what's your question about it, then we can call up the appropriate person. What's your, or Jonathan's gonna be here
Well,
for
I
your
called
question.
Laura and had my questions answered, so I'm sure Jonathan can probably
Yeah.
talk to them about it.
Well, I'll start. Seems to me that we're paying 28 grand to let them come and take our student list, which I'm not comfortable with, all our student demographics and data, and, I don't know, do research. I mean, if I'm not getting it, let me know, but that's what it seems like. We're paying 28 grand so University of Chicago can do research using our kids and our data.
And my concern is the 50% of the teachers, students, 50%, and parents, 20%. If we're paying this amount of money, then we need to find a way to make sure that a greater number than 50% are responding. You know, I don't know if you can offer an incentive
What's in it for
or
us?
something to get the people
What's in
to.
it for us?
So let me respond to both. I'll start with you, Ms. Gilliard. In the past, last year, we did not have any school that missed that minimum 50% threshold. In fact, most of our schools are in the 70 to 80% range for participation. The 50% is the minimum to need in order to do some of the statistical analysis. And only the schools that want to opt into the parent piece, which then when they opt in, they're responsible. And many of them do some very creative things to get that parent piece done. They'll be out in the parking lot with iPads, and when parents are waiting to pick up their children, they'll have them fill it out, or they'll give them the paper in the car and clipboards and things like that. So the schools do opt in, and they last year we did not have any issues with any school missing the required number. Mm-hmm.
But parents
So-
are only 20%, correct?
Correct. And the parent piece that schools get back is a little different than the student perception and teacher perception data piece that comes back. It's more of a listing of different pieces of feedback for the schools to use. With regards to your question, Ms. Jorgensen, so the data, we do share data. Most agreements that we enter into with any program includes data sharing. We do that with most of the programs that we use, actually. With regards to your question around what do we get back, we have been using 5 Essentials for 2 years now as a district, and we use that data. That's really the only qualitative data that we collect as a district. And by qualitative, I mean the perception data from students and teachers. We have a lot of numeric data. We have a lot of assessment data, school grade data, which are all numbers. One of the things that has been beneficial is that in all of our top 2 plans that we had to write, in a lot of the grants that Melissa writes and I write, qualitative data is required. And we can't just include anecdotal notes about what we think. And so the 5 Essentials is included in almost, like if you look at, and you've seen all of our top plans, and all of that data is included by the school and then compared to the district. And so it really is valuable data. For $1,500, we're using it often to try and, I mean, you saw the number of grants we're getting, so.
Yeah, well, that's what I was
We're
just
able to
gonna
plug
say,
in this piece.
Yeah.
Yeah,
investment
okay,
for
all right.
$15 million worth
And,
of grants.
Well, that's what you,
set,
when you
four
show
of the,
that you've got the numbers where we have demographically, then you're entitled to, or it puts you in a position to apply for these grants, and it does make a difference to have that data.
Now,
And-
let me just ask you, before 2 years, we did one as Title I schooling that was qualitative, and it was correct. That was a free one that was done forever. So don't tell, there was a free one done through Title I schools, qualitative. So this was not something new that we've never had, and it was done completely free. So I don't like the fact that you're like, oh, we have to spend $28,000 to get qualitative data when we had qualitative data through the Title I grant, Title I survey that we did previously, like 3 years ago. So I didn't vote for it 3 years ago because we'd had something working just fine, and then this came in and we had all these great models of Mosley and all the things that they taught us about the 5 essential surveys, and we looked at all this great data, and then look where Mosley is. So I don't see it's done anything beneficial for Mosley, and we've had it for 3 years. And again, Title I has a qualitative survey that's been done for 20 plus years without a cost.
But the data, here's the problem, the data that comes with Title I is data, but it's not data that's driven by the universities that are trying to turn out the teachers that are going to, and the school leaders that will address these problems. And universities like Johns Hopkins, Peabody College in Nashville, and the University of Chicago, when they put their information out there and they ask probing questions that sometimes go over to the families and they get a little more involved than just a regular old Title I survey, it will qualify you for more money. And
Actually, the Title I survey and the 5 essentials, as a parent, I've made copies, they're almost identical. So I know because I've done them. So I mean, I'm not going to vote for this now. I didn't vote for it 3 years ago. So I'm just saying it's identical.
It can be identical, but when you've got the data where you've gone out and paid an expert that lives over 50 miles from home come in and tell you, it's different.
I haven't done it. Okay, that's your opinion.
That's my opinion.
That's good.
any other questions?
Thank you.
Thanks, John.
Okay, well, yeah, then
John.
I'm sorry. Just to make it clear in my mind before I vote, if we wanted to, we could have qualitative data through Title I. Is that correct?
With all due respect, I disagree as to the way that data is presented at the end of the year. Yes, it is qualitative data, but it is not the same data as we're getting from 5 essentials.
That's more useful in the grant apps.
And the other thing is that the data we collect through Title I and the survey we've used in the past is only representative of our district. It doesn't give us any comparison data to other districts and schools in the state of Florida or nationally.
Right, thank you.
Dr. Coleman?
Sure. Not to belabor the issue, but just to clarify, I'm shorter than Jonathan. Just to clarify, the parent survey that we give through Title I, the reason it looks almost identical to the 5 Essentials survey is because we crafted it to be almost identical, because from a parent perspective, what we've done is 5 Essentials survey is serving for Title I, is serving to survey everybody. So our goal was just to replace it with 5 Essentials and not have parents do the same thing. But it requires on the parent side that a certain number of parents respond from each school. So what happened at certain schools is that it didn't generate the report to have a parent survey. And then when we had to turn in those grant deliverables for the state, we didn't have data from some schools. So we had to, we're still having to give a survey, parent survey to schools to make sure that we're not in a place that we don't have data. But from a research standpoint, it's helpful to have a research-based survey that has national data behind it.
And do Title I, can you actually compare to other districts and across the state? So you can compare with the Title I one too. Okay. So there's comparisons that you can get data.
Well, Title I historically, and Deborah's here, so you can kind of help address this, but historically, Title I had kind of crafted their own survey as a
Right.
county.
Right.
So Deborah can kind of,
Modeled after the 5E Chicago study.
yes.
It was revamped several years ago. If you remember, Sam Forrester went to the Bureau of School Improvement. He pushed the 5E Chicago study. So we did revamp with principals. I went out and visited, like Rick, and different ones and said, these are the questions that are on the 5E, and we sort of revamped it for us. Where I don't think you get what you're going to get with 5Es is maybe the direct correlation and comparison with the other people that are applying for these grants. Ours is probably not going to be a complete match, if that makes sense. It would
As
be hard.
reliable.
Yeah, it's not going to be as reliable, although modeled after the 5Es, and that was during the time I was there. We redid all that.
Right.
I think it would leave some gaps in the grant process that might cause an issue with the grant.
Right. Again, it
Does
was.
that make sense?
Right. I mean, I'm sure if it was modeled 5E in the beginning, then.
It's got some of the same questions, the same,
Yeah.
it's going to address, but I don't know if the people who are reviewing these grants and approving them would see it as a direct correlation.
There is.
Does that make sense? Am I,
For example, to give you an example, when we're writing SIG 3 grant, it's all the other school districts that got it, and I hate to say all of them, but they have 5E data that's supporting part of their strategy development.
and that's who they're looking at, is the 5E, the grant, the people that are reading those and approving them are looking for that 5E data.
So you're saying that these are federal grants that we're getting because, or the other people, because they call it 5E data, where we would call it Title I data when we turn it in on a
I
grant?
could see that being an issue, yeah.
Okay, well then,
So-
I'll go with
So what
that.
I'm hearing is the
Correct me if I'm not
No,
saying
you're
it the way
right.
you're understanding it.
University of Chicago piece gives us a better advantage as far as when we apply for grants, as
I
opposed
would think the
to-
people looking
to
at it
the-
are gonna say, yeah, they did the 5Es,
Title
which
I
is what
part,
we've
okay.
asked everybody else to do, as opposed to them creating their own.
Right. I thought when we first got it 3 years ago, when we had a big Mosley presentation, it was going to help us. And that's why I'm saying I don't feel it's helped us as a district, because I don't see any improvement as the questions answered and the data we're getting back that's helping us. So I feel like if it's going to help for federal and state grants, yes, I'll support that. But if it was just helping for our own knowing, I don't think, first of
No,
all,
I don't-
20% from parents, 20% is all we're getting. And again, I was looking and we don't have any of the exact numbers, because I know last year we were begging parents, like we had 14%, 9%, and there were
Right, we were
deadlines.
chasing them,
Yeah,
right.
they wouldn't do it. So I don't feel like it was a good source of data when you only have 20% of them doing it. You know what I'm saying? So.
Fully understand.
So one of the pushes, just to kind of highlight the difference in terms of the year progression, is one of the pushes, for example, Title IV is new this year. And one of the major pushes that ESSA put out is the idea of putting money and resources as a school district towards the socio-emotional components of schools in with wraparound services. So, so when you talk about kind of those soft items, like whether students feel comfortable at school, whether there's positive, feeling of
Right.
community support, whether that's when that kind of comes in to play a little bit more. When you have a question like, do students feel safe at school? Do students,
Right.
that may or may not be reflected in your out-of-school suspension data, but it may be more a reason that you devote resources such as a mental health counselor to a certain school, or don't devote a mental health counselor, that kind of thing.
Helps in the decision-making.
Yeah.
When you follow back up the chain and you realize that you've spent money with University of Chicago or Johns Hopkins or Vanderbilt, and you have one of these research-based groups trying to work with schools that are in the bottom 20% or whatever it is, those people have contacts in the federal government. They have contacts with administrative magazine, instructional magazines. They're going to get you your district on the. We used to have front page articles of Putnam County on some of those magazines, and they have lobbyists, and it's so different because when you deal with University of Chicago and you buy something and then they use it, they're gonna try to sell it to everybody, and their lobbyists that work with the federal government's gonna say, we need to get them more money to help them be successful. That's a weird way of saying it's very convoluted, but there is money.
As long as it helps get grants, I'm okay. I just
That's
thought
what-
it was
that's-
just for personal use, and I
Right,
didn't
which is the
see
way
the.
we used it historically.
Right,
For
that's-
many, many, many
Right.
years. But
Exactly.
now the
Right.
grants,
That's-
and especially the Bureau of School Improvement, they are looking for that 5 Chicago data.
Okay.
And so, you really.
Yeah, that
need
makes
it. I
sense.
mean,
That
I was
makes.
a
Just
big
make
push of
sure
doing
you
it
remind
myself,
us
but-
of that every year when we have to pay for it.
Yes, ma'am.
I make a motion to approve
I'll let
H3.
you remind me.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Okay, now are we going into emergency? Okay, we're gonna go out of regular session into emergency session. We have, do I read that out loud? So, what do we do?
Say again, I'm sorry.
We're going into emergency session for what is stated on our piece of paper.
Right. And you should have had access to that.
I make a motion to approve item as stated.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. We'll go out of emergency session back into regular session. Next, we have no unfinished business, but
On the unfinished business, if I can just interject on the
Certainly.
question regarding the school calendar, it probably would not hurt, in accordance with board policy, that we adopt a schedule at this organizational meeting. And at the next meeting, when the superintendent and staff have come back with their recommendations regarding South Putnam and West Putnam, we can always amend it.
I make a motion, we pass the calendar as presented.
Second.
all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Then this motion passes.
Thank you.
Okay. Under discussion of new business, discussion, input, and action of the 2017-18 Florida Safe Schools Assessment Certification of School Board Action, OPAGA FSAT.
Well,
Travis, can you speak to that? Do you have any information on that?
I read the letter.
Kathy's got some.
the way
I did
I
too.
do my agenda is I read on the computer, and if anything I want to read better, I print it. So I printed this out, and I'm reading and I'm thinking, this shouldn't be on the consent agenda. This should be on the discussion agenda. And of course, I couldn't find it on the consent agenda after I printed it out. So I'm glad we're discussing it. Is this just something we have to do? Like another one of those things we have to do, right?
Yeah, so it's an annual report we have to do.
That's it, yeah. That's what I thought.
It's just,
So-
it's basically a collection of best practices from literally every department in the district.
I see that. All right, well, I'm not gonna.
Looks
if
like a
nobody
lot of
else
work.
wants to- I mean, it says the purpose of this
Wait a minute.
assessment is to provide annual data reflecting the comprehensive supports for safe. It's about safe schools. It's about us and how we provide safe schools. And we're doing a self-assessment.
Right.
And in this self-assessment, it seems that we're just doing everything. There's nothing that we have to implement, absolutely not one thing that we can do to make it better. That's kind of what I read in this. That's the part I was,
Well,
That's the
I don't know
council
about
reason
making, we can
want to
always
have it.
improve, but I believe
what we have in place is
just about
sufficient,
every, we address each of those best practice areas in some
that we
manner,
are
yes.
doing it.
That's why we.
There are a few that were not applicable, as far as like the gang task force, it's
Oh,
not
you did
active
that.
right
Yeah, I
now.
saw
There's
that.
the Safe and Drugs-Free School grant that is defunct, it's no longer in existence. So it's a few things like that that were not applicable.
Well, I know that, every time there's an incident, God forbid, in Putnam County, but in a school across the nation, there are task forces formed and this, that, and the other. Do we get reports from national agencies that meet to discuss and come up with ways to make our students as safe as they can possibly be?
I think you probably the Regional Domestic Security Task Force is what you're talking about.
Well, I don't
Do
know
you
what the
serve
name
on
of
that, or
it is.
does
Yes, sir.
Rick serve on that?
I do.
Okay.
I served on that for a
And
long
so you feel confident that our schools, the personnel in our schools are trained to keep our students as safe as they can possibly be?
Yes.
You feel
Yeah. To the
confident?
best of my knowledge, yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Yeah.
because they still
That's-
practice the
Yeah, we
lockdowns
have-
and all of
That's
that.
part of
We
why.
do all of
so
our.
scary to me.
Yeah, we do. We have 5 major responses as far as emergency operations go, and they have drills for those each year.
Okay.
That's part of why we wanted to have the discipline workshop later in the fall or toward Christmas sometimes, whenever we can get it together. But it's like we said a while ago with discipline with young teachers and all, and we're gonna have to set the tone and the environment of what's allowed to be said and done in schools, and
Well-
it's got to be enforced by the people there, and we've got
Right.
to back them up with action when something occurs, so.
Well, and what's scary is, the occasional Looney Tune that might walk into school and you have no idea what's on them and what they might do, and our reaction to that's what's,
If it can
So
happen,
important.
it will happen, and that's why as a board, you've got Mr. Weaver with his background in law enforcement,
thank goodness.
thank goodness, heading us up, and anytime something goes wrong, I blame him.
No, don't you dare.
But
Well, I
anyway,
must say, I feel
We've
safer when
been
he's
blessed.
around.
We've been blessed.
Dr. Coleman was not here earlier when Ms. Gilliard was thanking you for,
Yeah,
all
say
that
that
you've
again,
done.
Sandy.
Oh, I just wrote a little note by this. You were requesting out-of-state travel for Federal Programs Director to California, and I read on where it said that you were nominated, I almost seems like unanimously, to represent 5 other districts or something, and I just thought that was awesome, that
really
they
is.
saw your work and what you were doing, and I just want to congratulate you on that.
very nice.
Yes.
So I make a motion to approve the is there further discussion?
I don't have anything. Oh, Kathy, you've got some more little notes.
new business.
We're saying that we've reviewed this and all that, so, and we say it's
Well,
all right.
I read it.
I hold Travis responsible. If something's not right, it's his fault.
You're not, what are you concerned with?
I don't wanna do this. That's okay. I have to prioritize my battles, and this is,
I second Nikki's motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And the motion passes.
I will take my concerns up with the superintendent and Mr. Weaver.
Okay.
Okay, and then let us know if there's something you
I
need
will.
to readdress.
Yeah.
Okay, it's time for board reports. Who would like to go first? All
I'll go
right, Ms.
ahead and
Gilliard.
start. I would just like to commend Mrs. Weaver, Libby Weaver, Sandra Weaver, Melon's story, how she has encouraged all
yeah.
of the teachers to tell their story, and their theme is just awesome. Greatness under construction. And I just think that says it all, that every teacher has a story. And she talked about how she walked in to this school and saw a fight and this, that. Now, it was just touching, and I just want to commend her for that. I also read Ms. Piazza Wood's newsletter, how she sends it out to the parents,
Yeah.
informing them of everything that is happening at QI so that they are informed, and that's great. That takes away some of that fear that parents might have, that perception or perceived fear, and with her sharing what's going on, it's there. I serve as a chaplain at Putnam Community Hospital. I was on call last week, and one of the nurses stopped me in the hallway to sing the praises of Jenkins Middle School. She was concerned because her child is an exceptional student, and it looked like her child was just not getting it. And all of a sudden, Jenkins has put her in, which she mentioned, Miss Shattuck and Miss Bubbles, and she said her child is growing and has progressed to the point where she's enjoying school, and the mother said it was just great. And I asked her if it was okay if I mentioned it. She said, I don't care. She said, I'm just happy with what is happening for my child at Jenkins. And so I just want to say kudos to them. To all of our principals that have sent in their graduation dates, requesting those, they're to be commended for that, so that people can make plans, because sometimes we have family members that have students that sometimes all of the schools are relatives, and so I want to commend them for that. And one final statement, this has been 1 year for me, and one article that I'm going to hold on to, I cut it out, and it was the one where Palatka Daily News declared that our behavior was not up to par, and our children are what they see. You know, they become what they see, and so I will make it my personal move this coming year to be better at my behavior, to watch my posture, to be positive, and even if I don't agree with something that is happening, if the majority suggests it, then I will support the majority and give it my very best. It has been a year of learning, a year of making mistakes, but growing, and so I want to thank all of the people of Putnam County that have entrusted me to be a part of their child's education and learning, and so I want to thank you for that. I'm done.
Mr. Buckles?
I'm proud to say that Deborah and I have another grandchild. His name is Landon Ashley. And he is about the cutest little baby I think I've ever seen in my life. Of course, they all, when they're yours, they're cute. But we were certainly happy to have that addition, and it's been an interesting weekend with the kids being papa, and they don't want you to take them home from the woods when you're hunting. They want you to let them play. Anyway, I enjoyed listening to the dialogue a while ago on how the Title I surveys work versus when you get one of these areas where they're making mass money being funded by the federal government to make money, and then, you know, these guys cooperate with Title I, and Title I will say, you know, they're investing in you guys and we'll help you. I mean, these people are friends. The money that is transferred to schools comes sometimes at what would you not call it? It wouldn't be a good old boy type mentality, but it is kind of that way, even though they might be women, be good old girl syndrome. But the system is set up to where, like, if we wanted to take over Head Start, we couldn't do it. I've tried it. I tried. They're not going to. There's too many fingers that touch the money, and it's a very intricate cloak to weave. But other than that, my hat is off to Thomas Bowling and Mr. Sarncy and the group that are in the search for the head football coach to succeed Bobby Humphreys
I'm putting my name in the pool.
at Palatka High.
I vote for Sandra.
That is,
I've
you know,
already put it in
football in all districts across America pays the bills for all the other athletic programs. And if you don't fill the bleachers and you don't have the dollars coming, you can't. It really comes out of the general fund to try to support the rest of the sports. So I know what Mr. Stout, how hard he's working on it. And I've talked to Jerome Wilkerson and several others. So good luck with that. And I'm sure they're going to do a fine job to try to get that program back on its feet where it can help fund the rest of the programs at Palatka High. And beyond that, the 20% we were talking about that Title I really focuses on, those are the 20% that keep us from being A and B schools. That's why we have a disproportionate amount of poor people in Putnam County that and I say poor, a lot of it is lack of job opportunity, And why aren't jobs locating here? It's not just because of the schools, it's because we do not have access to an interstate. And given the bear that was run over on the highway on the way from home from Bostwick today, we are the Greenway, we are the park. We're not going to be allowed to shove an interstate through Putnam County anytime soon. We are the Cross Florida Greenway, and without interstate access, anything that occurs would have to occur right on somebody's county line. I think the next scheduled interstate is gonna be at the Shands Bridge in Clay County, so we're, we're gonna have more bears and more great opportunities for kayaking and stuff like that, and that's all good if it's what you like, but it's hard when you want your young people to grow up and have opportunities here. It's very, very tough, and I hope I'm wrong. But beyond that, I think they're doing a great job.
Ms. Cummings?
I wanted to, I'm sure most of the schools have done this, but I was amazed, just working with Brownie Pierce. We've done a lot of turkey dinners, gave out a ton of food today, and buying turkeys and sending dinners home. I can't believe the way that our teachers and guidance counselors go above and beyond to make sure our students have a nice Thanksgiving. And I want to commend all that hard work that's been done. Churches gave, civic groups, it's like they all come together and make sure these kids have nice meals to take home with them. So I was part of that and very happy to be part of that. I was approached by two different situations that I thought would be neat to get the board's input. One was, and I don't know, because as we make budget cuts and we make changes and we always say we want to hear back. So I was approached by some teachers, students, and parents about, because the media specialists, we had to cut some of that through the budget cuts. So Mellon, it's real near to my heart because my third grader is unbelievably on fire to read like never before because of the library and going and doing the AR and getting points, and he got a movie day for doing 5 books, which is he's never ever cared about reading. So at Mellon, the kids can only check out books on Friday. It's only open 1 day a week, and that parent was upset because books are expensive and these kids cannot get the books, and it bothers me because I see my son transformed, completely transformed because of the library at Browning Pierce. And the other situation, I had a student, IHS, the library's never open. There's a football coach, I guess, that kind of hangs out in there some, but there's not being books checked out, and they're really upset about it. So I, again, as a board member and a parent, I was like, oh, these kids need these books. So those were two situations that, as the school board, as we made those statements in that budget workshop, and I don't know, they get very, maybe they feel comfortable, I don't know, coming to me more than the superintendent, but I don't know if that's been brought to your attention, if it needs to be readdressed. But as a board, I feel like we need to be at least made aware of these situations. And those were two complaints that were, again.
Well, did you follow through to make sure they were accurate?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. There's no, the library is not open at Mellon, but 1 day a week. And then Interlochen High School, it's very,
the coaches, right?
yeah, the football coach. So he's out, he's doing weightlifting, or so it's very limited. So those were two situations that I just thought.
Well, we were all very concerned about that when it happened.
Yeah,
So-
we were.
And what we did was we cut some support staff at each school and then left it up to the principals at each school.
Right.
Whether or not they were gonna staff their libraries.
Yeah, but again,
So that's what happens when you leave it up to them.
yeah,
That's
it's
who we're supposed to leave it up to run their own school.
But when it involves kids
But
not
it's
having
affecting,
access to
yeah.
books, and that's a district strategic plan that the board sets, it is a board decision. So
understand. I
if you
agree.
read our strategic plan
We did
and
want to
offering
do
these instructional pieces of books to these kids that my kid has got every access to at Brownie Pierce, and his friends or whoever at Mellon and don't have access to books, that bothers me. So again, that's just
Their
something.
principal needs to hear that too, the ones that, from the other schools.
Right.
They need to
and-
make sure they talk to their principal. They need to hear that.
But if the board has said we're not going to support a staff allocation, and they say, gosh, I'm sorry, we don't have any money available, maybe that's what they were told. So I just, again, it's something, the allocations are done by the school board. We made a budget workshop and we made these decisions based upon what we had to do. But I feel like feedback is important, and that's all I'm doing is bringing feedback from the community that was brought to me. So again, it's a school board, you're right, we do site-based management, but when the school board makes budget changes based upon our.
Could we ask someone on
We
your
shouldn't
staff,
deny any
Dr.
child.
Surrency, to
Right.
get with each of the principals at each of the schools and find out, for us, how often their libraries are open, what kind of access do the students have?
Now, I know Price Middle School has a paraprofessional in there
But I
every
think
day.
to let us know,
and
to
paid
report back.
churches
Yeah,
assist.
maybe,
Kind of how it's working.
The availability of their media center
Yeah.
to the students, yeah.
We need to know, because we made the.
Right, we
this
are the one that
We
we-
need to know, how that's working out.
Just try to find a way to make it workable if possible.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all, it
Well,
just,
and-
Because I'm
You
like
know.
Nikki, I don't want to see any child denied a chance.
If
Go
we
pull
have
the
to
book.
work on helping them get some volunteers that can come in and man the library so it can stay open, then we need to be doing that.
Yep.
right, because we're the ones that ultimately made the decision to cut. So again, I just feel responsible and just wanted to.
Because, I know what Nikki's talking about, because Candy Bacon's the library at Browning Pierce Elementary, and I know what she does.
Yeah.
And it's disheartening that each of the schools don't have a Candy
Right.
Bacon.
And it is, again, to deny the kids of access to books is heartbreaking to me, because I've seen what it's done in my own child's life. That's
Well, and I hate to say deny, maybe
limit.
Yeah, that's better. That sounds a whole lot better.
We limit it. So
Limit the access.
yeah, limited access. And then the last thing that someone had brought up was tutoring in the community. I know we have 21st Century Grant and UNICIG and all these great programs, and it's really a neat idea. We always have trouble getting the kids to stay after at 21st Century. I know the attendance is low, but have we ever, and that would be something the board would have to talk about with Dr. Coleman, but even at Road Heaver, somebody says, do we let these kids, what if we ever thought about having a tutor out there for our students there? Could we pay for it through 21st Century Grant and UNICIG?
Well,
and
we've
all?
had one until this year.
Oh, so we stopped it, so maybe we
Well,
could
it was
start.
funding. They paid for part of it and we paid for part of it.
Actually, that's been a couple of years ago.
It's
been
2
more-
years?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Wait.
I know they had one for years because Jimmy Hughes was
Yeah,
the
'cause it-
tutor and Mr. Litzel was tutor.
Yeah, a friend just got a job and says, I'd love to tutor these kids. And I thought, golly, all this money we get, why have we thought about going out in the community? And I know that would be something, it was just one of those concerns that community members have, because we can't get the kids to stay. The 21st Century, they leave at 6:30 at night to go home, and it's harder to get the parents. So it's like thinking outside the box. And that was something that was brought to an idea. So again, it's just something
So
to
you're saying we need to try to get more tutors.
into the community. One tutor that had worked said, "What could you even go to people's houses and tutor if I wanted to do that?" I said, I don't know. That's a neat
She can
question.
do whatever she wants to. I mean,
Well, I mean, get paid
she-
for it through 21st Century Grant, like just target.
typically the parents pay for that.
Yeah,
kind of tutoring.
I know, and this is what I'm saying. And we got 4.5 million with 21st Century Grant, and the attendance is so low because they stay till 6:30, and they.
Going with
and-
the 21st Century, they have to be on site. Is that correct?
Right, and we've met all of our attendance goals for 21st Century, except
Oh,
on
good.
state. But they're welcome to apply. Some of the difference that's kind of happened is that we used to be able to apply for 21st Century for all schools.
Right.
And the state changed it, and
It's
now
only
they have
the-
a grade requirement for the school. So it's only certain schools that were eligible.
The second, yeah, I knew it was
You know,
mostly
to even
secondary.
apply for the grant.
Right.
But we do need
Yeah.
more tutors,
That's a great tool.
I don't know if this person's in the Crescent City area.
Yeah, they are actually.
But we have positions they can apply for at Miller and the high school.
And then we need to be careful too with the background checks.
Oh yeah,
For
yeah.
anybody that steps up and want to tutor.
Well, when I
because then we
contacted-
become liable if we allow this without.
Right.
Yes.
Because I did follow up and went with the principals, and both principals says we don't have enough attendance to hire a tutor. There's not enough attendance. So that was so I said, oh shoot. And then they said, well, what about going out and tutoring it in the homes? And I said, I don't, it's just something to think about. And then this Road Heaver thing came up. Why can't we tutor at Road Heaver and pay a tutor to be there with our students? And I'm like, that's a great idea. So yeah, they actually followed through, and they would not hire them because they don't have enough attendance, was what both actually said.
Well, they
But-
actually have a person on staff out there, the husband's on staff, and isn't that what Ken told us? The wife is a certified teacher who, you know, if ever any money becomes available,
Yeah, that's
that we
what
can.
I might have been
but-
talking about the same people, because they just got, and they're certified, they
Yeah.
want a tutor, and I thought, why can't we pay them to
Yeah.
tutor at Road Heaver? So it's just, I don't know, I just feel like there's always, we're not gonna get things changed if we don't ever think outside the box. So these were just two things that were brought to me from community members. So again, I just want to bring it to the board, because we don't ever get to talk, like you said.
It's true.
All right, and everybody have a happy Thanksgiving and enjoy, be safe. All right, that's all.
I'd like to say again, thank you, for electing me chairman again. Maybe I'll continue to get the hang of it, Ms. Gilliard, and get better this year. I'm certainly happy about it. I feel the same way, same thing Sandy said about Mellon and QI Roberts. I was glad to get that information from the principals. It just kind of fills your heart to know these things that are going on. We are going to FSBA next week, and we'll be in training and in workshops to update us on current educational issues and how to deal with different things that may come up to us as board members. We're also going to continue our master board training beginning in January, working together as a board and with our superintendent. So I'm looking forward to that. We're going to be riding in the Christmas parade the day after Thanksgiving, so Miss Gilliard and I are looking forward to that. We're going to be riding in Miss Gilliard's sleigh that she'll have decorated for us. And I think that is all I have written down. I can't read my writing.
Cinderella. That's
Oh, yes,
exciting. I'm gonna
Cinderella's
be-
coming up. Oh, we had a sneak preview
Yeah,
at
you
Kiwanis today of Cinderella, and it's going to be amazing. So if you have not gotten your tickets to see Cinderella, please make sure that you do. You're going to really be missing out on a wonderful production. We have, it's not just Palatka High School, it's students from all over the county that audition and are chosen for parts for Cinderella. It's a wonderful Christmas time musical, and to take your children and your families to.
That's great.
Thank you for reminding me of that.
That's good.
Tickets are on sale at Ralph's House of Flowers. Okay? And that's all I have. Mr. Attorney?
Everything is going well in the legal department.
Okay.
Just skip right
I was
over
gonna
me.
say, what about
I thought
Kathy?
she started.
No.
I started.
Ms. Jorgensen, I'm sorry.
I have nothing to report. Sorry.
You're right, I should not have skipped over you, I'm sorry. We talked so long, I forgot who started.
Charlie, you okay?
I'm good.
If you check your calendar, my turn. We rescheduled the Florida Power and Light workshop. Make sure you have that date for December 18th at 10 a.m.
December.
And there were some things, we postponed that, had a 30-day extension, just to make sure we deal with some issues before we bring that to you, okay? So there's a lot of money on the line. We want to make sure we cover that.
It's the Value Adjustment Board's second day. First you picked their first day, and then you changed it. So I'll be at the Value Adjustment Board hearing. But we had to adjourn
Is
to
there-
a second day.
I mean,
that's
can't we have it
fine.
in the afternoon? It would certainly be easier for me to have it in the
If
afternoon.
you want to go to that Florida Power and Light presentation, I'll sit in for you and the evaluator.
Absolutely not.
Well, I just wish we could do it later.
Would later that day be better for you?
It would be
It
for
would probably
me.
work for me.
Mr. Bowen, you've been in contact. Could you, what's a good time? 2, 3, what's good for
Yeah,
you?
when we usually have our workshops.
2 o'clock?
2 o'clock.
Could you see if 2 o'clock would work
Is that
on that date?
board- is that
Thank
on
you.
And this is the 18th.
If you'll let me know,
Monday?
yeah, 18th, and we'll email you to confirm that, okay?
Or could we
Great.
do the 19th on the board day?
Yeah, well, he wanted
Last week, I went to Tallahassee, met with our legislative delegation, and a number of superintendents talked about some of the issues. And just to let you know, we're still waiting on what this year's funding situation is going to be, and it's not really rosy. And from what I think Rhonda probably heard some of the same stuff, 1% increase is going to be a stretch, and the hurricane is really putting a has really made things very difficult. So I'm very happy that we have created a fund balance because we may need that just to ride this storm. So, and we've been cut some entitlements. You know, we were cut Title I funding this year. So going into next year, there's a lot of things that we're going to have to consider. But we'll keep you posted as we get more information from the legislature. It's going to be an earlier legislative session this year, so we should know more probably in February, March, right? Just want to announce that we nominated Miss Piazza, Mary Piazza, for Principal of the Year, and Diana Drew as Assistant Principal of the Year, to represent us at the state banquet in Orlando, I think in February, and that's through the Department of Education. And there are strict guidelines or criteria for selecting them. You know, they had to be in a school for a certain amount of time and so on and so forth. Their school had to have a certain grade. So if you're wondering why other people were not chosen, that's the reason why. There was a very strict guidelines, but we will keep you posted on how they do. And I also want to announce this past week we honored our Teachers of the Year and Support School-Related Employees of the Year at a breakfast. And we also will be holding the ceremony, if you check your calendar, for January 25th. Make sure if you can come to that, that would be great. But we have some very fine employees being honored. And like I told them at the breakfast, they have an opportunity just by being honored to have a platform for education. So I encourage them to make sure they talk about some of the issues that we're facing, and especially the ones that are going to represent our county. So stay tuned for that. And I believe that's all we have, that I have, and great meeting. And congratulations to everybody who were appointed to committees and leadership positions. I look forward to seeing you down in Tampa, and I would encourage you also, you know, just talk to your people down there and, you know, about what some other districts are doing, and bring that back, because we like to talk to other districts and see, without reinventing the wheel, what are some things they're doing, you know, along the issues that we're facing. So, okay, thank you.
All right, then, anything else for the good of the order? This meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.